Right. Welcome to the show, Peter. It's beautiful to have you here. Do you mind, explaining
Sure,
and yeah, explaining what you
sure,
do and also introducing yourself?
sure. Well, first, thanks for having me. My name is Peter Swimm, and I work at a company called Toilville. And at Toilville, we help small businesses and uh, individuals how to use things like AI and workplace automation to help themselves without actually hurting the things that make small businesses cool, which is like personalization and helping people and stuff like that. So there's a lot of opportunity out there to like use tooling to kind of make uh, more work with less people and but there's a way to do it that isn't completely like losing your soul. So we help a lot of people do that.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you for explaining what you do. So what uh, what is something that as a general user could benefit from? So how do I see it as something that could be helpful for the general user?
Sure. I think like a lot of people they have like all the programs on their computer that they do things with. And um, sometimes you wish one program did it all, but you have to use three programs, and you're constantly clicking around and copying and pasting stuff from your email into another program. And that's kind of like the level zero of what people should think about with these tools
Mhm.
is how do I get it where I do less of that, right?
Okay.
Because a lot of people like I see them run their entire business plan from an Excel,
Mhm.
and that is it's good to be super organized, but it's super painful to like do anything at work. So like a lot of things we do with our clients is just do an audit of things and like it's like, do you really like doing the way you're doing it? And most of the time it's no, right? They are
Mhm.
like, well, we just kind of like figure it out. And, we have a couple people that do all that grunt work of doing it. And it's just like, yeah, there's ways you can use these toolings that isn't going to be like dramatically impressive. Like it isn't like Knight Rider, Tony Stark,
Mhm.
AI kind of things. But,
Yeah.
just like make it so when a person sends you an email, it shows up into the calendar app. And if you have a meeting with someone, take the notes, and the notes go into the intake form. So when you fill out the forms of the things, all the info is already there. And
Mhm.
these are really simple, not crazy sci-fi examples of things that work for people. So.
Okay. So how did you get this idea initially? Like what was uh what was the pain point you wanted to address?
So I've actually been working in the space for over a decade, and
Nice.
I kind of worked in the space my entire tech career because even going back to when I was in high school, I did tech support at the library, and I went to go work for other startups, and helping people do things with technology has always been kind of like the thing that I'm interested in.
Mhm.
And so when the current generation of AI came around, and this is the just another step in many iterations of this concept. Um, we finally saw like a way to like democratize it and get it in the hands of people and do things at a greater velocity. And I was working for a big tech company, and I would talk to people about their cool product plans and like, man, I wish I can find someone like you to help me do it. And then I woke up one day, it's like, hey, I'm someone like me.
Yeah.
So I'll go out there and just kind of help people like, I'm not trying to sell AI, I'm not trying to sell ChatGPT anymore or Microsoft. Sometimes the best solution is like computer programming that has been around for 30 years, and I'll tell people that. And I think like that is kind of the way you solve like all the bubble effect where they're trying to get it to do everything, but there's things that are you know
Mhm.
regex is a thing, like
Mhm.
there's things that are like super cheap and do the job that don't require you to set the world on fire with CPUs and stuff.
Mhm. Mhm. So what am I getting into? Like, let's say if I'm using Tollville's product, like what am I getting into? How
Sure.
convenient that would look like? So how do you explain, or like how
Yeah,
would
yeah.
it how is without Tollville and
hmm
how it would look with Tollville? So what's
So,
the
so right now we're more of like a process, like we're working on internal products. We do stuff internally that we build stuff and then we kind of dog food ourselves, but we let people kind of like buy the off the shelf stuff. And I think like that's super reassuring to our clients because there's a bit of like oh, you're going to make me change platforms, or I'm going to have to dump
Mhm.
this and do that. And I think like platforms are pretty much the same. Like as long as you commit to one and you don't keep moving around and like building stuff, you can get a lot of value if you just kind of hunker down and
Mhm.
stop like beta testing other people's products and just work on what's good for your business. And
Absolutely.
so a lot of the work I do with people is almost like a Marie Kondo kind of thing, where we just like, does it spark joy or is it pain? And, are you paying for two things that do the same thing? And, what is the one you hate the most? Let's get rid of it and
Mhm.
simplify it. And
Mhm.
and the simplification is kind of what makes AI work better, because when we talk about hallucinations, it's really kind of just like translation from this version of a thing to that version of a thing.
Mhm.
And so if you can simplify everything, even to the point of where, a lot of people just like, oh, I'm just going to use everything in a product like Notion, and then everything just talks through Notion, it
Mhm.
makes the AI work a lot less complicated.
Yeah.
They you use one product all day, and things just show up in your Slack or wherever you use your communication method of choice, and you don't click around in five different programs trying to figure out where you said the thing that you wanted to say. So,
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting for me actually because the idea of the podcast when I started the podcast was about like general lives, inspirations of people doing different things. And yes, absolutely, I'm talking to a CEO. It's for sure an inspirational story. And I would
mm,
like to know, like, when you talked about AI and like technology, how do you see technology growing? And because you also mentioned one point that caught my attention was you talked about AI hallucination and something that I learned recently about AI hallucination. So maybe you
uh,
could also, uh,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I think that's kind of like, um, a lot of AI is a guessing machine, right?
Mhm.
And because you're just, and I think that's kind of like when we talk about AI being a bubble, it's because I think people are getting tired of this, where you put AI on the front. But what instead, and I have my clients think about, what if you just like put AI on the back? So like
Mhm.
you have a computer program and it asks you a question and the answer is yes, no, and you give it something that's what calls an error in a program. Then the AI comes and helps you build new functionality for your program.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
so instead of having AI replace everything or replace people, I think AI kind of fills in the glue of
Mhm.
like, how do you build something when you may not know how to do it, or how do you like add a simple feature that stops you from clicking five times a day? Because I worked a lot in product, and one of the part things you do in product is watch people just use the program, and you don't say anything. You just kind of
Mhm.
watch them figure it out,
Mhm.
and it's very illuminating to see
Mhm.
people like, oh, like, oh, this person's like clicking here and doing all this weird stuff that you never thought people do it, but they seem happy, and they,
Yeah.
and they figure things out. And
Mhm.
like, and I think a lot of people get into relationships like that where sure, Excel is not made for a project management, but a lot of people use it for project
Use it.
management,
So,
because it's on their computer and they figure it out and they're fast in it. And so I think that's the real potential, is instead of like, you know, I'm gonna be in Slack and I'm going to have Office, and now I need 17 different programs because Microsoft product and Slack product need to talk to each other.
mhm.
And you're just writing a document, so why don't you just read the document and have it do something over there? And that's kind of like the exciting thing about AI. I'm not interested in like making a movie. I like people who make movies. I like musicians who make music.
Yeah.
I'm excited in finishing my work 2 hours earlier, so because I had to do something boring and tedious, and now I get to experiment with the fun part of the thing that I built. And I
Mhm.
think that's kind of like why a lot of these AI companies are kind of getting blowback now, because they kind of uh, took all the creative people and all the cool coders and all the stuff and just said, we don't need you for 2 years.
Mhm.
And so now all those people aren't putting their ideas into their product. And that's kind of like why, I don't think they're moving forward with things. They have to go out now, they have to go out and hire a poet for, ChatGPT to work at, because, they refuse to pay any poets to write books,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
it's very it's kind of interesting. It's just like you're never going to get anywhere without people buying into your idea. And
Mhm.
so, being able to just kind of like look at the technology for better for worse and see like, okay, here's what it works. And I've been working in conversational AI, like I said, for 15 years, and there's like problems that I don't think humans should have to grapple with. Like I've worked in call centers where people answer 200 phone calls a day, and every phone call is 2 minutes, and the first minute it had is just verifying who you are, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And like, a machine could do the verification, and then the person could figure out the actual problem.
Mm.
And I think instead of like trying to like completely automate contact centers or make people work like machines,
Mm.
we cut them more time to
Mhm.
like focus on those problems. And so, you get on the phone and you don't have to answer like, what's the address or
Yeah.
reboot the computer kind of questions, but you can spend more time on the complicated ones. I think
Mhm.
that is like better for everyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for summing it up, and thank you for explaining it, because I feel like the people who are listening sometimes, the trend how AI started, and like a lot of people know social media a lot more, computers a lot more, but they're still learning about AI, and
Mhm.
just to understand what is AI, and also like what its capabilities are, and how, because often people get scared about like, oh, we're losing jobs because of AI. Oh, we're like, it's happening, AI is replacing.
Yeah,
And so there's that fear that has been created, or I don't know,
yeah,
like it's I don't know, it's maybe a word of mouth, or it's like how it's felt. So maybe thanks for explaining that. And
yeah,
yeah, and how do you think, Peter, like, you talked about multiple things of like, how the machine could do things for you initially, and then how the logic, I would use the logical side, let's say the human brain, like machine cannot
yeah,
think as a human. So how does that distinguish, like, because sometimes we say, okay, we are asking the machine to do this, but we need human
mm,
intervention. And where do you see it? Because like oftentimes we always think, oh, machine can do this, but still requires human intervention
yeah,
and,
yeah,
human thinking capabilities. So
yeah. Well, I think that's kind of like the crucial thing. Like over the summer, I was sick for a week, and I took the week off, and I just did vibe coding only for a week. And the
mhm,
kind of thing that struck me to it was, if you tell it like you're ordering a pizza from a menu, it's
mhm,
always gonna be bad, right? But if you're talking to it like you're asking it how you would do it, and then you watch it do it, almost like you're a teacher in a school and it's a student. All of a sudden, it's suddenly became good, and that showed me that like humans can't be out of the loop. You can't just say like make me Photoshop, right? You can't say like do my book report for me, because all it's going to do is kind of make the the sum average of every book report in the world, and it's going to be bad and boring,
mhm.
and you're not going to learn anything.
Yeah.
But if you went to the process of like, how would I say my intro? And then you
Mhm,
write it, and then you rewrite the intro. I suddenly found myself learning stuff. Like I never was a Rust programmer, and I
mhm,
got into Rust programming because I would watch the coding agent do things, and I would pause it and stop, like, "Hey, why'd you do that?" or "Why are you doing this?" And if I just took the code as it came out, it might be functionally correct, but it's just literally trying to do what I have to say. And
yeah.
being able, a human can like figure out, oh, here's one cool trick I could do to get the thing I want, or I need
Mhm,
to do two or three different things, and
mhm,
that is like something the AI I don't think will be able to do for a very long time.
mhm.
So if you have that in mind, and that you have that process of like, you know, pretend you are the greatest security expert in the world and read my idea, and what am I missing? Or go and find the gaps and help me learn and research that. That
Yeah.
is super useful and helpful, if you don't have access to the greatest security people in the world.
Mhm, mhm. Amazing, amazing. Thanks again, Peter. So going forward, like, how do you want people that are listening to this, or watching this, how do you want this to be perceived as, like, because so your product, you talked about how it could integrate. So I would use the term, I'm not sure if it's a right term to use,
Mm,
as an integration between
mm,
what different tasks, uh, so how would this integration
yeah. No,
play?
no, I think that's a really important thing. I think people need to come to grips with the technology's role in your life, and that goes both ways. The people make technology and the people use it, and I feel like technology companies have kind of gone overboard with what they do to us and like the choices they make on our behalf and decisions they make for us without like any kind of autonomy. And they take our data and they use it to train data. And I think all that is just going to have to, there's going to be a reckoning, and people are just going to like, no, I don't want you to take my ideas. I want you to help me work on my ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and the other side of that is like, I need to know exactly what's happening at every step of the way. And you can't just be like the Wizard of Oz doing things behind the curtain and like, oh yes, we actually used all your data to make a company that is your competitor, and now we're gonna like put it on the market and drive you out of business, like, and so people, they want to like, they want to do more work and they want to work better, but they have a really hard time trusting and believing these tools, and they're just not going to use them to help make them better. So there's going to be kind of like a, you know if it's free and it's too good to be true, you're going to be, oh, you're the customer. They're cloning you or they're taking your ideas or whatever. And if you actually pay for it, are they still doing the same thing to you?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's funny you said that. Like, not everything that's free looks free. You pay a
Right.
price somehow. Yeah, you pay a price somehow with your data, with, I don't know, like your privacy or whatnot. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I remember like early in my career, I worked for a retail vitamin chain, and Amazon gave everyone a free store. So you would go to yourstore.amazon.com,
Oh yeah.
and And then, meanwhile, Amazon was just watching your sales data. And then, like a year later, they launched your company Amazon version.com, you know? And so, like, I think a lot of these companies are kind of like in the same mentality of like, oh, yeah, we're just going to like watch you mess around, and then we're going to use the data we learn from you and put you out of business, And I think like people are kind of sick of that. They're sick of like, paying rent to a company and all that.
Hmm.
So, and I think what people always have that they can't buy is expertise of humans and, ingenuity and, the smart, you know, the ingenuity of like people thinking through problems. So there has to be kind of a reckoning. And that's why, my grandma had a saying of like, how do you stay out of trouble? You just always say no. Like
You always
if
say
so, yeah, yeah. If someone offers you drugs or wants to fight you or do all the things in the street, you just say no and you walk away. And if you don't participate in these systems, they're going to wither up and die. So a lot of
no.
people who are anti-AI on their own cost, I work with them too. Like I'll work with people who don't even use computers
Mm.
because it's just a process. It's just like you either do a notebook or a notebook computer or in a huge Kubernetes superstructure,
Yeah.
and it's all just filing. It's all just like your process. So if people recognize that, then it doesn't really matter what tooling you use as long as you kind of like understand what's happening every step of the process.
Hmm. Yeah, I often think of people because I also worked in IT before, and like into product based company. So it's always difficult for uh, explaining how the new product works, and especially with AI, it's like all of a sudden a new world. So how do you find it? Uh, I'm trying to understand, how do you find that uh, you know convenient to explain to people, or to promote it people who have been using like the
Yeah,
old, I call them legacy systems for a while, and then like
yeah, yeah.
something that's like, yeah.
No, I think you make a great point. Like, you're younger than me. I'm saying observation, but when you go to save something in an application, there's a little picture of a floppy disk. And have you seen a real floppy disk anywhere lately? Like, why is that still the thing for saving? Like, and there's all these kinds of like icons and like, they're kind of like stereotypes of like what computer design is.
Mhm.
And we do have the ability with AI to like, when you play a video game and you're going through the level and it's a completely new world and level and they have design tricks to tell you, here's how you jump up on a ledge and
Mhm.
why does that not happen in software? Why do we always have to just like I come into an office, I'm in, like this one, and I click in something that looks like a computer version of an office, with a drawer and all that stuff. And it's just like, why not? Why does it not look like Fortnite, or why does it not look like,
Mm,
Minecraft?
mm,
And I can still get work done. So I think it'd be great, like if people can just start like vibing out their own kind of Minecraft like workflow, where it's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna have when I push this boulder, it sends an email, and when I open this virtual drawer, it saves it, and we're not kind of like beholden to like these companies who have to make something that means the same thing to everyone equally,
equally.
and I think that is going to make computers really easier to understand for people because they can kind of just embrace it in their culture and the way they do things.
Yeah, interesting, and it'd be super fun to also see different things. It's a good idea actually. It's a good idea. It's a
Yeah,
good thought. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And
yeah.
Peter, yeah, sorry, good.
No, I was saying, my product manager, he does a lot of teaching students like coding camps, and they do stuff in Scratch, and they
Hmm.
do stuff in these cool like video gamey kind of worlds. It's just like I wish my coding environment looked like that. It's
Yeah,
fun. So
yeah, yeah, absolutely fun. Uh, so yeah, Peter, I would really like to know because I know you touched based upon how you started. So maybe you could walk us through your career or like
sure,
how
sure,
how it changed, how it changed,
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah,
I have a very non-traditional path. I didn't graduate college. I just started working in tech companies in my 20s, and I went around and, I happened to work for some startups that did well and some startups that didn't do well. And, I've worked for, I've had bad jobs and good jobs. And I kind of just done a bunch of different jobs. And that's kind of like my secret weapon because I meet people my age in tech who've been 22 years at one company. And I've been in every industry and every vertical. And so it's easier for me to like understand people doing it the wrong way, because everyone doing it like, oh, we're agile versus like, this and all that.
mm,
And it's just all different. And it's whatever you get things to get done. And so that's probably like, if I was going to give advice to like people going into tech, I think like being like promiscuous and like trying a bunch of different companies and, because companies now don't have like, they're not going to like, no one's going to retire from one job anymore. You know,
mm,
like you're going to come out of college and get the job and you're going to go work that it's not going to happen, and you're doing yourself as a service because there's so many different cool things you can do with the same idea. I can work for, and I work on, with every vertical in my client work. I work with retail companies, I work for insurance brokers, I work with, bakers and candlestick makers and all that stuff.
yes,
And it one allows you to see like, oh, here's a commonality. Everyone needs to like ship things and make money and pay their bills and all that. But here's some cool thing that is like, oh, this person's doing something really cool with technology that I never thought people could do. And like I talked to like teachers who teach special ed students, and they use AI to kind of tailor everything for the student because they found that like, well, the kid has a really hard time with math and science, but
hmm,
if you put their favorite, One Piece characters in there, or you do the math problem in something they're interested in, then
yeah,
that keeps them engaged, and they wouldn't be able to do that. They wouldn't be able to, pay for special textbooks and all that stuff. So there's a lot of interesting things out there, and you just need to get out there and find it.
absolutely, yeah. Thank you. Thanks for explaining that. I actually had a question while you were asking, and then you answered that question because, yeah, a lot of times I see, especially it happens a lot in this side of the world, like in the Western
Mm,
world. Like I was working my previous company. I had my manager or my director, so he retired, and he worked 40 years in the same company.
mm,
But I see like especially in the young people these days, they're like switching companies every maybe 3 years, 5 years. I'm not sure what is the right path, but again, I feel it allows you to learn more, different product, different technologies, different people, different mindset, different leadership,
mm,
it gives you more opportunity to learn other parts of the world in technology, within technology, but other parts of technology,
mm,
rather than limiting yourself. I mean, again, I don't know, like some people believe in just going one place deeper than someone who's like, oh, I would love to learn snippets of everything, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah. And I mean, if you find like the one, if you graduate from college and you find a company that really takes care of you and like you love it, the culture, and you're learning stuff every day, then absolutely, stick with it. I've never found the one. And, every company I've worked at has been like, there's cool people and there's bad people, and, things are difficult. And I think like you owe it to yourself
Mhm.
to really be challenged and interested by the work that you do. But also, you got to take care of your family and your friends, and you got to have time to do things. And there, if people are asking you to make sacrifices, you got to ask like why. And that kind of goes back to the AI thing of like, oh, if it's too good to be true. What, oh, they have snacks, or they give me cookies, and and I can stay as late as I want, and they have pizza every. It's like, when are you going to go home? When are you going to work? Like I see a lot of people, like I get asked a lot about was it the 6-6, the 6 days a week, and
Oh, yeah,
12 hours a day, and it's just like
yeah,
I I if you can't get work done in 8 hours a day or even 32 hours a week, then you know that's working harder is not going to like solve your problem. You
mm.
need to like think smarter, and
Harder, absolutely.
you need to recharge. You need to like some of my best ideas come in the shower or like in the woods or playing with my kid in the park, and you need to give yourself those opportunities also to recharge and do your best. So
Uh, if I have to ask you, Peter, how does someone working at your place, let's say, uh,
mm,
as in working in your company, an employee from Tallville, how would
yeah,
they? I mean, it's not kind of a. I don't know if it sounds like a
yeah.
HR question, but
No, 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 no.
I'm trying to use my words like carefully, just so that like I could understand because you talked
Sure.
about or
Well, I keep my company very small. Like I have a designer, I have a product manager, and I have a person who helps keep me organized. And it really is just kind of like, we don't have roles just to have roles. And also, we don't make people do the work of other people just because we don't have enough people.
yeah,
And the other thing that has a hard time for my employees is I don't ask them to tell me what they're doing every minute of the day, right?
yeah,
So if I'm making you work, 32 hours a week or 8 hours a week or whatever, I'm laying out for you. Here's what we need to work on this week, and if you figure out a way to do it in an hour, and I don't care what you do the other 20
yeah,
hours, right? And I think like that is kind of like a young people get it. I think that's very much like the TikTok generation, kind of like, yeah, like if I figure out some cool trick to get my work done and it's accurate and it's high quality and it's not full of hallucinations and, it's not like half
yeah,
half-assed, I don't think we should punish them with more work,
yeah.
unless you want to do it. And
Understand.
that's a very different mindset from the people older than me and even my age and younger of like, oh yeah, like I'm going to rip off the company. It's like, no, you are doing cool stuff, and you're
Yeah,
playing around and you're coloring and you're like being creative for the next cool idea. And that is like really hard for some of my employees because they're used to like structure and they're used to like getting in trouble if they don't do stuff. And I don't want to run a kindergarten. I was never good at school. Why I didn't go to college is because I didn't like I would be daydreaming and the teacher would call me and like try to catch me daydreaming, and I knew the answer because I already figured out the answer 20 minutes ago. So I'm just like
mm,
biding my time. And I don't want to like make people go through the structure of work just because we scheduled 32 hours of work in a week. Like um, and so I think that's what's interesting to me about AI is because now that I have like systems in place, I can like write a document, and then when I need to like make the PowerPoint version of it, I can help AI can translate it, so I don't have to make uh, translations of things for different audiences.
yeah,
And because I'm a human, I read it and I don't just send it out. I make sure it doesn't hallucinate and I write it.
mm,
But I'm able to like do things super fast, and like I can talk to you for 20 minutes instead of having to work for the day.
yeah,
And that's I think that's like what's cool about AI. I think that's having the ability to like be free of the 9 to 5.
absolutely.
Like
Uh-huh.
so.
So
And
yeah,
that's the
yeah,
kind of thing and that's what I'm trying to do for my clients is just kind of like, oh yeah, we could be free. We can
yeah.
like, you don't have to like spend 40 hours a week wrestling with Office or Slack or whatever. You can just like do it the way you want it and then leave work early and go play tennis or whatever you want to do. So
Nice. So yeah, as you mentioned, yes, AI could do things for you, but again, it needs human intervention just to check, to verify, to second eye, so that it doesn't hallucinate, and like it's kind of cross verification, and then you
yeah.
reprompt it if in case you have any questions and
And I think that's kind of what's missing from a lot of AI stuff, and that it's a tooling that we're working on is like if you AI prompt the same thing every day, it should stop using AI, right?
Mhm.
Because it's like, oh, you should be able to write a program that does this for me every day because I do the same thing every day.
Yeah.
And so we found that if you do this, it only takes like a week or two, and then you have a computer program, and you
Mhm.
use each version of the prompt to like kind of structure. Okay, here's what the program needs to do on this case and this case and this
Yeah.
case,
Yeah.
and so you have a pretty good application, and then you turn off the AI bill. So after 30 days, zero AI for this feature, and that is much better, I think, ROI than paying for ChatGPT Pro of $200 a month, and like just you can have the $19 plan and get by, or turn off that plan entirely and use your Copilot PC or your Apple Intelligence PC because computers now are fast enough to run things locally.
Can you explain? So, do you mind explaining that a bit? Like, I don't know, like
Sure.
for people who are
Yeah.
planning, like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So like right now, like if you use a product like ChatGPT,
yeah,
it takes your wish and it sends it to a server in the cloud, and there's huge data centers, and they run it in real time, and they give you the result back. The computers that they do to run it, most of them are using chips from a company called NVIDIA,
mhm,
who for the last 20 years before AI was making video game cards, right?
yeah,
Because gamers, so like computers that are like fast that run games are also really good at AI because of these chipsets.
yeah,
And so if you have a computer made in like the last 2 or 3 years and you spent more than like $400 or $500 on it, it can run pretty good AI models. And they're making stuff. There's a website called Hugging Face, which researchers and stuff release free models, and you can download these models and put them on your computer, and they
mhm,
run pretty good. Like the thing you got to keep in mind is that we've been using AI like this for 15, 20 years. And so the things that we wrote for the technology of 10 years ago
yeah,
runs really well on the cell phone, right?
yeah,
And so if you take out the requirement of inventing the wheel every time, you can use cheaper and cheaper models. And that's kind of what ChatGPT and them are doing now. They do the kind of orchestration where you say what you want to do, and they're like, oh, we'll just use this model because he didn't ask to make a movie. He
mhm,
asked for a lookup.
mhm,
And so if you do this for yourself, you can just put your AI in front of ChatGPT and
mhm.
only go to ChatGPT when your AI is stumped,
Yeah.
you
Okay.
know.
Okay. Okay. Makes
And
sense.
I really think that's the future of like, when Apple Intelligence and Copilot launch on the desktop, they're gonna like have okay AI. It's not gonna be the best AI in the world, but it's gonna be good enough to like figure out where you put the file on your computer, or write a letter to your mom and all that.
Mhm.
And it should cost no money because you're paying for the electricity and you bought the computer,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think like for people who are technically inclined, you can kind of do that today, and we help our clients and hopefully soon consumers do this on their own computer, where they can sign up for ChatGPT, or they can sign up for whatever, or they can run a free open source thing
Mhm.
and do what they want to do only, and not do any of the other stuff that they don't agree to or whatever, in a very consensual way.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, maybe you can help me understand better.
Mhm. Sure.
So Toil will help people to have their own AI models
Hmm.
integrated with
Yeah.
AI, and then
Yeah,
yeah.
there's off-the-shelf models. You can build your own ones, um, or you can just use the commercial ones in a way that is not expensive. Like it's kind of like a dirty trick. Like Quad Code in October announced that if you pay for the consumer AI, they own the code that comes out of it. So if
Mhm.
you're making code for yourself and you pay the regular app stuff,
Yeah.
they technically own the stuff that you do,
Mhm.
and most people don't realize it because it's buried in the EULA, and I think it's kind of unfair because never in the history of the world does anyone charge the electric company doesn't charge you, doesn't say they own the stuff you use with when
Yeah.
you use the electric company, and like they want to be a utility, but also like they want to be like the owner of the stuff you work, and it's like having the worst landlord in the world.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
and landlord lets himself in and uses your toothbrush and all that stuff. And so I think this is going to be a big reason I get a lot of pushback uh, from my clients. Is like, yeah, I don't want to use these guys anymore. Like, I don't
Mhm.
trust them. I don't,
Mhm.
people don't like them. And so, like, for example, I'll tell you, like, I have a designer, and designer likes working in a program called Affinity for his art.
Mhm.
And we were using Figma because everyone tells you got to use Figma to show you how the application's got to work.
Yeah.
And we used AI to fire Figma and just take his graphic and put it into the code.
Yeah.
So we can skip that middle layer of, like, oh, like we have to see how it looks before we have a developer waste his time to do it.
Mhm.
We could just take the SVG that he makes in Affinity and map it into the code base, and we can like compile and look at it and play with it in real time.
Mhm.
And I think that is like super interesting and powerful where, okay, we don't need all these middle products and these subscriptions and all these products that people don't like,
Yeah.
like art, Figma is great, but it's not an art program,
Mhm.
and it's not a developer program. It's like this weird kind of like middle thing. So why don't we just look at it in the program that we're building, as opposed to like making a fake arena to do it. So,
Yeah. Okay. What's if I could ask, what's in for Toilville next? So what's yeah.
um, yeah, we're working. We do a lot of client work. Um, uh, I am doing a bunch of open source projects that we hope to come out with next year. And we're going to start putting out some literature on how to do it yourself, open source community. And I love like working with students and educators. So we want to put out a lot of resources to get people thinking about um, good, safe, healthy way to use these processes, how to, get out of under the thumb of big tech, and maybe do some consumer apps that like make it easier for people who are non-technical to kind of like mess with this stuff. Because it's very, it's very difficult. And I think people like, people are experts and they know what they want to do, and
Yeah.
they may not know how AI works,
Yeah.
but if they had like a good way of onboarding, they wouldn't be like forced to pay the $20 a month to open
Mhm.
AI and all that stuff. So,
Perfect. Uh, it's just expanding on that question. What's coming for Peter?
mm,
I asked for the company,
I,
but
yeah,
what's coming for Peter? Like,
yeah,
oh, is it Peter is planning some other product in the sense of like Paulville,
yeah.
but something else?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm thinking about different things, how to do things, and I'm not super ready to talk about in the open, but I think like, you know, uh, a big part of I'm in my mid 40s, and I'm thinking about like, okay, do I want to do this forever, and what does the
Mhm.
future of me look like, and what am I passionate about? And I like doing things like creative stuff and music and technology, and how do I get more time in the day to do things of that. And so like, you know I'm always distrustful of people my age, like, oh, I'm a serial entrepreneur. It's like, well, there's another word that's serial and that's not good. Like I wouldn't put myself in that kind of
Yeah.
word. And like, I think there's got to be like, you got to go through cycles of life. And I
Mhm.
think like, being able to like, uh, spend time with your kids and your family and stuff is increasingly more important, especially like as you get older and you're kind of seeing like the sun start to set. Like you got to spend the time with the people you love. And I think like, especially in tech, the rise and grind culture is like,
Yeah.
not what I'm about and not what my company's about. So I think that's like, how do I get out of that? It's kind of like my thinking, like how do I get free from that rise and grind, and like get back to doing fun stuff with computers as opposed to like working.
Thank you. Thanks again for sharing that. It's beautiful that you shared that. A lot of people, I mean, are still struggling with work-life balance. Either they're like they're I mean, I see like either left or right. There's no middle. Like, either you're overworking or either you're
Yeah.
like you don't care at all. It's like
Mm,
finding a middle point, especially after pandemic, it changed a lot. And like post pandemic era is a different era. Um,
yeah.
but I feel like what you mentioned about like spending time with the close ones, and like the people whom you love and all. So it's beautiful. It's beautiful, and I must say, like I would like to congratulate you for your
Mm,
journey from someone who's a school dropout to
yeah.
becoming a CEO and like working on the product and like bringing a change in technology versus also in people's life to
Yeah.
make it better. It's beautiful, and yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate you for
Yeah.
doing that.
Well, thank you. And like I'm lucky, I'm in the United States, and I'm a white guy, and like there's things that like I don't think there's people that can fall upwards like the way I fell upwards. So like, I put this message out to people who may be hearing this, like, don't be afraid to reach out to people and ask to do stuff, and try to do stuff, even if you're like you're not to do it. Like I've my main thing I've lost in my age is imposter syndrome, because I've seen like the most highly decorated people make bad choices, and like, and I think like there's going back to my grandma saying, always say no. Like
Yeah.
the worst thing people could say to you is no. Like, so just ask and try to do stuff, and don't think you aren't good enough to do things, because they're all you need is like one chance, and you can like crack the nut and get into the path of something. So
Wow, that's beautiful, Peter. Thanks for sharing that. It's like a lot of people. I know, like I mean, I would be honest. Maybe there's some fear for myself as well when, like, oh, even
yeah,
when I started this podcast or when I talk to people, sometimes, I mean, as humans, we have this feeling of like, oh, maybe we'll get rejected, maybe a no, maybe it's it might just be a simple no, but we start overthinking about that, and like as you mentioned, like just reach out and say what's the worst thing that could happen. So no,
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah. Like I used to do things where I just like would drop people a note and say, "Hey, big fan. Just wanted to say keep up the good work." And
yeah,
I became friends with people like that. Like, you
beautiful.
never know. Like you don't have to be like, "Oh, I had sent 10,000 LinkedIn messages a
Yeah,
day or whatever."
yeah,
Just like put yourself out there and like find people who are doing what you're doing and connect with them however you connect with them, and just see what happens. Like a lot of like my opportunities came because of friendships, like people that I was friends with, like all the people I work in my company I've known for 16, 17 years as friends.
yeah,
And I was like, oh, when I started my company, it's like, oh, I know I have a friend who's a really good graphic designer, or I have a friend who's a good teacher, or I have a friend who's a good office person. And so it's cool because I know the character of their people, and
yeah.
I know the quality of their work. So why not work with people
Absolutely.
that I know,
Absolutely,
so.
absolutely. Peter, like maybe before we wrap up, I just want to know, like, how do you see technology going forward?
um yeah, I think like there's always going to be people that use technology for good. There's
Yeah.
always people that are going to use technology for bad. And I think what makes it different at the end of the day is like those people are always going to have to like you have to keep grinding, and you always look over your shoulder, and you look at people like the Elon Musk of the world and stuff, and they look exhausted, right?
Hmm.
Like he doesn't look like a relaxed person, and he's constantly fighting with people online, and you're like, well, like why why should I venerate these people? Like
Hmm.
you look for people in your community and look for people to be like, because I've learned so much from just like listening and talking to people's problems, and talking to people who aren't in tech, and like uh there's a lot of answers, and I think that's the future of tech is engaging common people where they're at. Like
Yeah.
like I love working with like I have a client who makes shoes and jackets and stuff like that, and it's just like, yeah, like this was an actual job, and there's things outside of tech that have been in careers for hundreds of thousands of
Yeah.
years,
Right.
and you know you know get to know people, and maybe your future isn't in tech, and I think maybe tech's future isn't in people who've only known tech. So
Hmm. Hmm.
that's what I kind of hope to propagate. I want to get people excited about using technology, but
Yeah,
not it being the sole reason that they're doing anything. We
absolutely.
use technology to make music, or we use technology to make movies. We don't make tech for tech's sake.
Thanks. Yeah, that's beautifully put, Peter. Thank you. Thanks for that. Uh, Before we wrap up, is there something that you wanted to share that we missed, or maybe I may not have asked?
No, I enjoyed our conversation, and
Of course.
I think like a lot of people kind of like they study. I don't consider myself successful. I'm still working at it, and I'm a work in progress. And I think like you just have to like learn how to work every day, even when you don't feel like working, right? And I don't mean to grind, but I'm like, some days you're not good, or you have a disappointing day or whatever. And so if I can like help people kind of like know that kind of like, oh yeah, yeah, some days I just suck, and or sucky things happen, and then it doesn't make me a less person, and so I think there needs to be more kind of tech speakers out there doing stuff like that, and supposed to just being like, yeah, I work 22 hours a day on my startup, and that's how I made my first $1 million by
Yeah.
26. And it's like also like your dad was your first investor for the first 500K in your company, and like people admit stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
like you know work hard and learn your stuff, but also like do stuff you're into and don't work for jerks and all that stuff. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I like what you said about yet a work in progress. So yeah, there's a famous saying like we are all a masterpiece, but yet work in progress. So we're
Mm,
still continuously working on ourselves. That's okay, but accepting that we are also a masterpiece, we are all unique, we are all different, and still working on ourselves. That's beautiful. And
yeah, yeah.
I again congratulate you for your grind. I wouldn't say grind, but like the your progress.
Yeah, yeah.
From where you have started and from where uh, you are right now and where you're going towards. And I appreciate for what you do and what you're contributing. Uh, I have one last question that I generally ask people before
Mm,
we end the call is like, what is that something? Because you mentioned a few things that you want to do, play with kids, play tennis and whatnot. So, what is that something that you want to do that has been in your mind for a long time, and you were like, oh,
mm.
I would like to do, but you have been, pushing it for for some reasons. So what is that something that comes to your mind?
I kind of alluded to it. This is what I'm doing with Toyville next year, so stay tuned. Um, I think like um, I think the thing that I most been working on, and in my 20 years of tech, when you plan something, you have it the way you want to do it, and then you have the way that you can do it in the time given, and
Yeah,
the what the company wants and all that. And you make a lot of compromises, and all the stuff that fell off the board
yeah,
has been sitting in a big bucket
big
in my
bucket.
brain. And like and so the product I'm making is only my ideas that didn't catch on, and they're not like constrained by uh, it not being the popular idea to do things. And it's really liberating to me, especially at this point in my
Mhm.
life, to like work on something where I'm the decision maker and I'm like a
Yeah,
thumbs up for thumbs down. So I think everyone needs a project that they're kind of like the king of, right? Like, and it could be a hobby, it could be like a painting, but like
I, I
having
love
that part of my
it.
life is something that I missed for a long time. And I think that's what I'm looking forward to next year, is kind of like letting other people play and see with this, because it's really cool.
It's beautiful. I had goosebumps when you said like, be your own king of what do you do,
Yeah.
a passion, a project. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thanks again, Peter. Thanks for bringing the technology side and also I believe the life experiences side of it. And I really enjoyed this conversation. And I see you a very empathetic and compassionate guy. That's where I believe your progress also shows that because I've seen people who are probably not compassionate, but in a position where they cannot handle it, and then
Mm.
there's a rift between the employees and the people, and that's not good, right? It's not yeah, it's not
Oh
easy,
yeah.
it's not good. So I congratulate again on that and I appreciate what you do. Thanks
Oh
again
yeah,
for your
yeah.
contribution.
Yeah, for sure. Like my first tech job, I was like 19, and the CEO threw a modem. at the guy next to me because he was mad at him. And then I was just like, I'm never gonna be like that. And so far, I haven't thrown a motem at anyone. But like, yeah, like there, everyone should have a line where they're just like, yeah, this guy is not going to teach me anything more, and he's
Mm.
probably hurting me my trajectory. And
Yeah,
like you don't have to like walk out and quit a job, but like look around,
look
talk to people all the time, and don't
absolutely,
settle for jerks. That's my.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, thanks. Thanks again, Peter. Thanks for your time. It was a beautiful conversation. It was nice talking to you. Yeah,
Yeah,
much.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and check us out